Have you ever found yourself looking for ideas for songs and then feel like you're just playing the same things over and over again? In my case, I have a tendency to use the same chords, and I think it makes sense, right? Every chord progression gives you a vibe and a sound, and if that's a vibe and a sound that you enjoy, always going to enjoy it until maybe one day you get bored of it. Like, here's just a quick example. If we're in the key of A minor, a chord progression that I end up doing often is like A minor, F, and then D major, and then perhaps a G or an E to resolve back to A minor. I kind of call them the superhero chords. There's an old video on my YouTube channel that you can go check out all about those. And sure, I guess if the song is calling for that specific vibe, then maybe use those chords again and again and again. But at the same time, if you're gonna use those same chords over and over again, why not try and do something different with them? Like in the case of my latest release song, Loosen the Grip, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. When I was working on what I feel like is the verse section of that song, I had the start to a melody in mind. My first instinct was to look for bass notes and chords that I could play along with that melody, and after trying a bunch of them, I figured out something like this. And it sounded pretty alright, but it also sounded kind of dull to me, kind of boring. Like, there's nothing wrong about those, but if we're talking in the key of G minor, or maybe even B flat, I guess, we're starting with the 4 chord, the 1 chord, and then the 6 minor. Straight up diatonic chords in the key of B flat. But it just didn't match the vibe of what I was going with. The main riff of the song features a little bit more modal interchange and some fancier chords. And I kind of wanted to invoke that, but at the same time still keep this melodic diatonic-ish vibe. So I started looking for other chord inversions and trying to add some of the notes of the main riff, like using a minor chord, but with a natural sixth. Gives you a little bit of that Dorian vibe. And I ended up with something like... which sounded pretty cool, and I think is one of the rhythm guitars that's going on in the background. But I then had to figure out a way to do those chords along with our original melody. So I went and tried to do... but it became a little bit too jazzy and out there, and it lost the more soulful vibe of... So while figuring out other chord inversions, it also expanded the melody a little bit more. And not only did it sound cool, but if I was just playing it along with the bass player playing the root notes of each chord, between the two of us, we would be perfectly outlining the chord progression that I ended up with, which was an E flat major 7, the B flat major 7 with the sharp 11, and then a G minor 7. But as I kept playing it, I realized that the same superhero chords that I was trying to avoid were exactly the chords that I ended up with. Now, in my defense, I do think it sounds cool, and I think it doesn't sound like the superhero chords in the most obvious and standout way, but they kind of invoke that vibe, because we're starting with the E flat again, and we don't exactly move to the C major, but by doing this B flat sharp 11 chord, if we add the C underneath it, we're effectively getting a C7 chord, but we're also adding the 9th and the 4 or the 11th. Which we are then resolving to the G minor. So in some ways these are the superhero chords, but it doesn't really sound like the superhero chords. By messing around with different inversions, even if we don't exactly have that C bass note underneath that chord to make it a C chord, it could very much be those superhero chords. But they aren't. They're something else entirely, at least in my opinion. So next time you're trying to figure out an idea and you end up with something that you've already done plenty of times before, and you try to do something different, but nothing really matches the vibe of what you were originally doing, well, perhaps you should just stick with that idea. But if you want to, this is something that you can try. Mess around with different chord inversions and different bass notes, and who knows, maybe along the way you'll even find some ideas that kind of match some of the other riffs of your song or some of the other parts that you're working on, and it can work a little bit as a theme. In this song I often do a bit where I'm doing G minor, then I move to an E major or E minor within some of the riffs, and by doing this arrangement of the verse melody with the chords, if I use this chord shape, this is kind of an E minor 7 just along with that flat 9, which is very much like another riff that we have in the song. In my opinion, it gives the song way more cohesion instead of it just being a salad of riffs that you throw into a track. Oh, and in the context of the song, the whole verse ended up sounding like this. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest released song, Loosen the Grip, anywhere you listen to your music at, and leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow, and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day about said songs. So if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other ones too. While you're at it, maybe you can share it with some friends that might also enjoy them. Your support in these videos and songs has been amazing, and I can only hope to see you in another video. But until then, cheers! I don't know if this happens to you too, but when I write songs, there are a couple of tempos, or at least definitely a tempo range where I prefer to compose in. I don't know if it's something subconscious, like maybe it has to do with your average heart rate or something like that, but I often find myself within that 120 to 140, 145 range, especially leaning more into the 140 BPMs. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that, especially because when you're working on an idea, whether that's a riff or a chord progression or whatever it is, you might try different tempos, and when you do, there's certainly at least one where it does match more the vibe that you're envisioning. But at the same time, isn't it kind of boring and repetitive that you're just working around the same tempos and BPMs? In the case of my latest released song, Loosen the Grip, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at, I figured out this riff, which we're probably going to talk about more in another song later on, but until there, just remember this video. And it's like a cool riff slash chord progression slash arrangement, whatever you want to call it, in G minor. And when I was first trying to figure it out, I was playing it at this speed. And there was nothing wrong with it, but it definitely was kind of fast, right? And like I mentioned before, I tried to play it in different tempos to figure out which one it would work best, and I honestly struggled to figure it out, because it sounded pretty cool fast, but if I played it kind of slow, it kind of gave it this sad and lonely dude vibe. And honestly, that was quite a vibe. It was then that I thought to myself, maybe I should loosen the metaphorical grip on having all my songs be really fast, or at least somewhat fast, and loosen it up into a slower speed, and loosen the grip on that monopoly of BPM. In a figurative way, of course. In case it wasn't obvious already, don't forget to go listen to my latest released song, Loosen the Grip, anywhere to listen to your music at. And while you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other ones. And hey, perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. The support on the songs and these videos has been great, but it really means a lot and makes all the difference, so I can only hope to see you in another video, but up until then, cheers! I really like to mess with chords that aren't in the same key and try to weave them in together, whether with voice leading or modal interchange or whatever you might think of. And truth be said, some chords just work with each other well, even if they are as far apart as you can find them. Like, I don't know, maybe you can take an A minor and I don't know, an E flat major 7 and think to yourself, hey, these chords are pretty far out there. They don't really match with each other too well. But maybe you just need to work on the inversions of those chords, because if you look at an A minor like this, and an E flat major 7 like this, obviously it doesn't sound like a pretty ballad or a pop song. It actually sounds a bit dark and mysterious, but that's not a bad thing. In fact, it might even be the sort of sound that you're looking for. And I'm pretty used to looking at chords like that. I've definitely used a bunch of different chord progressions and chord combinations over the years, but one that I didn't really remember using was going from G minor to E7. And once again, it is one of those chords that you can kind of use pretty well, like you can use a G minor like this, then use this shape for an E7. Technically it's more like a D diminished, but if you add a E on the bass, it then molds into an E7. But looking back on all my songs, even if we changed keys, I don't think I ever used this chord progression. I don't know, I guess I probably just never thought of it. Up until when I was working on my latest release song, Loosen the Grip, which if you haven't yet, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. I was working on this riff with triplets, and I was doing like a G minor chord, pretty standard, and then I went to this inversion of a D minor. It's the notes of a D minor, but they're just out of order. You have the F on the bass, you have the D on the 4th string open, and then you have the A on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. And while looking at this chord, I then noticed that if I moved everything down a fret, I would have an E7. It wouldn't just be alright to just move in with the E7 like that, because they're not in the same key, right? The E7 feels a little bit out there. At least it did while I was working on that riff. But then I thought to myself, okay, wait a minute, what if I keep on with the triplets thing, but then I raise the F to an E, I keep the A in there. In one hand you can think of it as a D sus2, or you can think of it as an E with a 7 and a sus4. And if there's one thing that you can do to really lead you into another chord, is to first suspend it and then resolve it. So by complete accident really, I ended up with something like this. And my first thought was, okay, we're in E7, we can modulate to A minor and do some other sorts of riffs there, even if it's just going back to the same thing, then switching to another key. And we can just keep switching key changes like that. But it just didn't really match the vibe that I was going for, especially because Loosen the Grip is pretty much a G minor song for pretty much the whole way through. But as I was repeating the riff, I was then surprised to figure out that if I did go to that E7, it didn't really sound that weird to go back to the G minor. I then mashed it in with another riff in G minor, and suddenly what was just originally a couple of chord ideas ended up as being something super cool that I just had to record on my phone and leave that idea ready and settled for whenever I finished the song. Also, in the context of the song, it sounds like this. Is this sort of chord play something that you do very often, where you mess around with different chord shapes and different chord inversions and try to figure out different ways to voice lead them into each other or do modal interchange or whatever it might be? Let me know. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy the other ones. And while you're at it, why not share them with a friend who might also enjoy them? In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest release song, Loosen the Grip, anywhere to listen to your music at. And once again, thank you so much for your support in these songs and videos. It really means a lot and makes all the difference, and I can only thank you guys so much. And all I can really say is I hope to see you in the next video. But until then, cheers! Has it ever happened to you that you're messing around with some chords or a riff or an idea, and while originally you were trying maybe a specific rhythm or a specific vibe, and then you experiment with another variation of the same theme, and another, and another, and another, and it just feels like they're pouring in, and you then end up overwhelmed, not quite knowing which ones or how to use them within the song? Well, that kind of happened to me with my latest released song, Loosen the Grip, which you can and should go check out anywhere to listen to your music at. There's a previous riff in the song where I start with a G minor, then I move to an E flat, and to a C minor, a B flat, then like D flat sharp 11. But it's a more chill section of the song, and I wanted to do something a little bit heavier, like a breakdown, something thick and with chugs. And so I was trying to mess around with these lower inversions of those chords. Probably started with something easy and simple, like... And although it sounded nice, it wasn't exactly the vibe that I was looking for, so I experimented with different versions, and they all sounded so cool that I just didn't know which one to choose. So, as a splendid display of my brain rot ADHD self, I decided to use all of them. It is a breakdown, so I kind of gathered them in a way where I can build up to the aggression and build up to that sense of chaos. In that sense, it was kind of thought out. It wasn't like just throwing a salad of riffs into a track. I felt like it added an interesting contrast to that riff by developing those different themes. They are also chords that have showed up before in the song, so it gives those chords and that sound that you were accustomed to listening to throughout the song a whole different vibe and feel. And it stopped me from having to feel like a parent when you ask them who their favorite child is. And in the context of the song, it ended up sounding like this. Has this sort of a thing happened to you often, where you find all these different versions of a theme and you're not quite sure of how to develop it within the song? Let me know. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest released song, Loosen the Grip, anywhere you listen to your music at. While you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every single week and I'm releasing new videos twice a day about said song. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other ones too, and hey, perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. And thank you so much for all the support, it really means a lot. I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! You know, different time signatures definitely have a specific vibe. Sure, we often talk about the odd ones because they're odd and give you that more weird and less secure vibe, but just because time signatures like 3/4 or 6/8 and 4/4 are very much common and we're used to feeling different grooves and vibes within those registers, it doesn't really mean that they're the same or that 3/4 or 6/8 just feel like triplets within a different measure of 4/4. For instance, when we're thinking of a song in 3/4 or 6/8, which they're not really the same thing, but let's pretend they are for the sake of the shorter video. When we think of that vibe of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it can very much have that waltzy vibe. And if your song does have that kind of rhythmical vibe, it might give you that more whimsical fairy tale-ish vibe. And not gonna lie, it's not something that I use super often, but I sometimes do. Like in the case of my latest released song, Loosen the Grip, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere to listen to your music at. Near the end of the song, there's a metric modulation, which again, we're not going to really explain in this video, but just think of it as not only a change in tempo, but mostly the rhythmical sense of the song. I took the main melody and chords of the verse, but gave them the vibe and time feel of a 6/8 or 3/4 time signature. In this case, it's kind of debatable, which made it sound completely different. Here's a little clip of the both of them. And sure, you might have listened to them and think to yourself, you just took the same melody and made the backdrop be triplets instead of it being quarter notes or eighth notes. And to that, honestly, I hear you. But maybe you should check the whole song and see what comes after that metric modulation, because near the end, we do something with the song that completely changes the vibe of it, and it's not just a tempo change, it's not just switching things from eighth notes to triplets, and in my opinion makes this song way more special. I've actually talked about this in another video about this song where I mentioned an Easter egg. For those who watched that video, now you know what I'm talking about. But if you have no idea, perhaps you should go check out all the other videos I've done on this song. If you enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy the other ones too. And don't forget to share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. While you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. In case it wasn't obvious, go check out my latest release song, Loosen the Grip, anywhere you listen to your music at. And lastly, thank you so much for all the support in these songs and videos. It really means a lot and it makes all the difference. I can only thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you in another video. But until then, cheers! I've recently released a song called Loosen the Grip, which, if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere to listen to your music at. And along with it, I've released a bunch of videos, not only talking about the song and sharing some stories, but also some tips and tricks, lessons, and even a little playthrough clip, including a full playthrough / music video on my YouTube channel, which you can also go check out. But if you feel like you can't be bothered to go watch every single video out there, I've compiled all the different videos on this song into like a Loosen the Grip themed movie, which you can also go check out on my YouTube channel. The support you guys have been giving me on these songs has just been completely amazing, and I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot, and it really makes all the difference. But hey, just because we're done with this one, it don't mean we're over. I'm releasing new songs every single week, and along with those songs, the daily videos twice a day about said song. So if you've been enjoying them, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other ones too. And hey, perhaps you could share these with a friend of yours who might also enjoy them. While you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more, because I can only hope to see you in another video. But until then, cheers!